Welcome everyone to No Show with Matt Brown and Jeff Borman. Tonya Schmitt, founder and creative director of the boutique interior design firm AIDT Designs, is our guest today. Now based in South Florida after years of calling New York City and New Jersey home, Tonya is on the move with new projects, a new website, new everything. And she is changing the way we think about boutique hotel, resort, and lifestyle design. Early in her career, Tonya had the rare opportunity to work under Steve Wynn and Roger Thomas, Vegas legends, which shaped her understanding of how design can elevate not just aesthetics, but the entire guest experience. As a minority woman-owned business, AIDT brings a distinct and much-needed perspective to the hospitality industry. Whether designing property in the Keys or reimagining a resort brand from the ground up, her work is layered, luxe, and never, ever forgettable. Industry veteran, fashion icon, bon vivant, entrepreneur, hotel owner/investor, Palm Beach socialite, daughter of Turkey and New Jersey, the undisputed queen of sourcing one-of-a-kind local finds, and I have to say this, Tonya, your team at AIDT is the most attractive group of people I have ever seen in my life. It straight up looks like a casting announcement for White Lotus. So congratulations on surrounding yourself with beauty, and welcome to No Show.
Wow, I am speechless. First of all, ever are looking for an additional gig, I might hire you for sales because you are sensational. I'm blown away by myself and the way you announced and introduced me.
And the next conference you go to, I should be your hype. It's like boxing. Yeah. I'll be like your hype guy who gets the crowd going.
Look out, Michael Buffer.
I'll have a tux. I'll have the mic.
Yeah. Actually, Tonya, our goal here is to actually make our guests speechless. That's how you do a perfect podcast.
Totally.
Oh, you don't even need to chat. This is it. That's it.
Okay, Tonya, let's begin at the beginning. How did you get into this business?
I've always really just been drawn to environments that sort of evoke an emotion. That kind of space, you walk into and you feel something, even if you can't necessarily articulate why. Hospitality design really just pulled me right on in because it's where beauty sort of meets strategy. You design for guests that you may never meet, whose experience you shape in the most intimate and maybe everyday way. So that is sort of, how I really became attracted to the business. However, I started off in fashion, and fashion is all about, the look, the feel, the mood, what's coming next, trend forecasting, fabrics, finishes, and then assembling that and basically selling it in a way that mass society or production will want to purchase, these high-end couture runway looks that can be distributed to big box retailers and essentially purchase. So I saw that was not going to be the path for me. It was basically like a devil wears Prada experience. And it was not creative. It wasn't fueling those creative juices inside of me. And I had zero desire to really design clothing. And so all the same time while I was in fashion, I was going home and reorganizing my apartment or my friend's apartment, or, organizing things over and over again with, the pillow arrangements on my bed, or just little things that were already telling the story of what I was, going to eventually become in life, which was an interior designer. So fashion started it off, and, it led me to interiors.
What's changed about luxury design over the last, call it 5 years, 10 years?
Well, luxury has gone from look at me to, in my opinion, feel with me. Today's luxury is quieter. It's more intentional. It's about texture. It's about experience, comfort, privacy, and meaning. People want this sort of emotional connection, not just the shiny things that say, look at me, I can afford, the finer things in life. It's about having, exclusivity, or I'm on an island and you can't get here unless you take 15 different private jets. Guests are going to continue to expect more than maybe we could even potentially provide to them at this time, but it will allow for us as designers to really push the luxury expectations in the future.
How has hotel design changed generationally? If we look back 20 years, in the end, people still check in a hotel, they sleep, they shower, they leave. And has the guest room changed functionally or just in its layer of aesthetic?
Technology has changed. That has really laid a groundwork for us to really layer upon more interesting design features. It's not just about checking in necessarily anymore, having, the best sleep ever. It's about, having sensory balance. Can the materials support whatever level of emotion you're trying to evoke from that guest? We're integrating things like air purification systems and sound and mood and lighting and spatial flow and promoting well-being. Sometimes you can check into a hotel guest room and you have a little workout zone right there in your guest room. It's not necessarily the same, walk in, sleep, have a nice shower and leave experience. Of course, I think the brand and the hotel flag can sort of dictate maybe what that experience is sort of going to look like. But I mean, I definitely think that hotels are changing just because of the different layers of technology that we have at our fingertips.
A few years ago, I was in a hotel in Southern California, and with all the California regulation and signage, right? There was low flow shower heads and be kind to the environment,
Yes.
nods all over the place. My question here is, what do most designers get wrong about hotel rooms? And because I think of that hotel with all the conservation and good intent, in order to turn on the shower, and this is an open bathroom concept, you had to step into the shower, reach across to turn it on, and then guarantee yourself to get wet from the rain shower just to turn on the shower. It then sprayed everywhere. So if you're over at the Vanity, you have soaked the entire bathroom. And I'm having this experience at a quasi luxury, more of a lifestyle, I think, hotel. Nonetheless, a very expensive place. And I'm thinking, I don't think designers ever stay in their own product. What do you think designers get wrong about guest rooms?
Well, I have a whole wealth of experience designing guest rooms over the last 20 years of doing this as a designer. And I can say that story you just told me, I can give you a million experiences where that exact sort of thing in some way, shape, or form has happened to me personally. And it just irks me. Like, what were you thinking? I actually visited a very nice hotel in New York, over $1,000 a night to stay in. And they had a hole cut through the glass, which you could see it was an afterthought. Someone was complaining of that exact situation, and a hole that you would stick your hand through and manipulate the diverter and the wand and so on and so forth to not go through that. So I think absolutely the shower experience is probably top three for sure. Designer getting it wrong. I also think the draperies are, I mean, for me, how many times have you stayed in a property and that one little light seepage comes through and you are up at the crack? I mean, the crack of dawn, because one little quarter-inch reveal in the drapery or the side return of the drapery, that the designer didn't think about that. Or, hey, you have a PTAC unit and the air conditioning is going to be blowing that fabulous drapery you selected as the designer. How about weight the bottom of it? Because that's going to be flowing effortlessly through the wind, and that's going to show light in the middle of the morning or the wee hours of the morning. So I think drapery is probably second for me, my biggest pet peeve. And then lastly, I mean, I would think about acoustics. I think to some degree, we have the ability as interior designers. Certainly, you don't always have the ability to knock down the wall and, re-insulate and such, but there are ways I think you can get around sound acoustics, whether it's, items that could be used as decorative art pieces that carry acoustical properties that look good, and that the guests will have no idea what they're there for truly, which is to provide maybe a sound barrier. How many times have you slept in the guest room and you feel like you're almost on that vacation or business trip with the person next to you. It's actually somewhat awkward when you know who's staying next to you. If you are on a business trip and you hear some of the things through that wall, you can really never look at that person ever the same, actually. So I think
Tonya, please share some of your experiences and what you've heard.
well, I'm not going to share those, but that'll be a different podcast. But I mean, in general, I think it's the shower experience, the drapery, and for sure acoustics. Those are my top three.
So you do work for branded hotels as well as independent boutiques. What are you instructed to do in hotel design that you most resist?
Oh dear. Well, I mean, that's a complicated question because there's a lot to unpack right there. Branded properties, we are at the mercy of the brand. They provide to us a sort of hit list that we have to accomplish from a PIP project, property improvement plan potentially. And then we have a set of brand standards and we have to design against that. And I can't say that every brand knows exactly, the best approach from a brand standards, but generally speaking, we are kind of responsible we have to, match those standards. I would say the most challenging that we resist is sometimes the clients want to skirt around the brand requirements and sub out that spec or find a way to value engineer that spec down where it jeopardizes maybe the integrity of the spec, or switch it out during the purchasing phases and hope and pray the brand never catches wind of that. So I'd say that's probably the most, resistant point for me as a designer is basically pulling the bait and switch on the brand from the owner's perspective, or in some way just trying to dilute and water down something, whether it's a design concept or anything really, concept in general, specification, to a point where it's almost unrecognizable. It's like you going to a Louis Vuitton store and buying the most beautiful bag on the shelf and then asking someone to recreate that bag in a factory that is not the same level of quality, not the same type of material, not the same level of detail, and then hoping and praying it looks just like that beautiful handbag you spotted in the window when you walked by.
You talk about value engineering. One of the pieces that I would first remove from hotel design today to save money is the telephone. Does anybody need a phone in their room anymore?
I mean, actually, I did have that experience recently where I did need to contact the front desk and there was no phone in the room. So I did have to call via my cell and then I had to go through the regular. That was not a good experience. I ended up going down there, I think, in my borderline pajamas and no makeup and hair done and just taking care of what I needed to. But
I can sense the trauma you're still feeling.
Well, I mean, lucky for me, I look kind of similar without my hair makeup done. So, I have to worry.
What she's saying, Jeff, is that she looked fantastic when she went down to the lobby.
She wakes up beautiful. Got it.
Yeah, just woke up and okay.
Well, I hear you. I think that there's a better way to do it, and I do agree. I don't think you always need that cell phone, that room phone. And I think there's ways maybe with AI, you can tie your cell phone technology to the hotel. They're doing text messaging now, which helps in many cases. But yes, I think we're moving that way quickly.
I want to talk about some of your experience in Vegas because Vegas is a favorite topic on this show. But before we get into that, I did want to talk about a few of your recent projects. And the reason I tie those two things together is that I think Jeff and I have had kind of a long-standing theory that the world has become Vegas in many ways, particularly for hotels. There is a desire for the experiential. You have worked on some very distinctive projects over the last couple of years, including the big $200 million Margaritaville in Fort Myers Beach. When you look at your designs, I think you did an amazing job kind of bringing a level of sophistication to the space. And I think, I think Vegas is, the capital of the world of that kind of thing, of having something just incredibly high and a little low too, kind of mixed together to create a distinctive experience. What was it like when you first got into that project? Did they know exactly what they wanted, or did you have the freedom to kind of come in with some ideas of how you wanted the space to look?
When I took it on, I was operating in a design director role at another firm. And that project was presented to me that it's almost done. We have a few spaces and a few specs that need some tweaking. However, once we got into the execution of the design details and what the client really truly wanted, we realized pretty quickly, or I realized pretty quickly, that there was a lot more work that needed to be done here. We were missing crucial and require brand defining moments. Margaritaville has very specific requirements with their artwork packages, almost like that Walt Disney World, Las Vegas, Kumbaya, it kind of comes together. So I quickly see that we were missing moments. And as I got into the details with the ownership group, we were having to develop these from scratch, like at a pretty later date than we had expected to. So basically, I had to design at warp speed. And again, lucky for me, I worked in hospitality, worked for some of the best firms in my career. We had to work together as a team to basically develop this very intricate and customized bespoke property that was reflective of Fort Myers Beach. Now, there was a lot of history in Fort Myers. We also had a major hurricane, Ian, go through there and destroy, everything except our structure. When Ian pummeled through there, our hotel was the only thing left standing pretty much for miles. Lucky for us, we did not start to install the interior finishes just yet. But I mean, our construction trailer floated away. All of the control samples, as we call them, when we're doing custom work, we have a bin of control samples that the GC keeps on site and purchasing agent holds and such. So we had a lot of challenges. I mean, that was a 10-year long project, and I was involved for, our firm was involved for 5 years, and then I saw it through for the final 3 years.
8 years is a lot of time in Margaritaville, you know.
Well, the city, it's actually interesting because, hindsight's always 2020. The city pushed back on that project. Nobody wanted them there. The local residents, we don't want this big fancy resort. This is a locals, family owned, chill, very whatever type environment. Little did they know their entire environment was about to be washed away, literally. And Margaritaville stood as a beacon of hope when they lost everything in Hurricane Ian. That was the only place that was functioning with the lights on, the F&B outlets, place for a community to grow and feel like they have something like a flagship to come back to. It ended up being a beacon of hope for them. So it just goes to show you, you don't always know what's coming.
You're also working on a new music themed hotel in Brooklyn.
Yes.
And it's down by Industry City, and it's in a part of the borough that has traditionally been underserved by hotels.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about the project and how it came to you and kind of what the overall vibe of it is?
Yes. So the project is very unique. The owner developed the design with me hand in hand, and he's very involved in music. He's actually a DJ himself, and he's got a lot of experience, in that music sector. So this project was all about, moody vibes, rhythm, not the type of rhythm and vibes that you would think Hard Rock Hotel, completely the other direction, more like variations in lighting, trying to mimic sound waves or a DJ set, playing with texture and evoking this sort of Gen Z genre. No guitars on the wall and such, just very layered, lived in energy that feels like music.
Budget is always going to be something that people complain about. And
Right.
the budget will be $500 million, but oh, it's really tight. We've really got to reel it in. What are some tricks that you kind of deploy to make dollars stretch in a room to give it a luxury feel, a quirky feel, a really individual look?
Sure. I mean, I just did a newsletter for Mint Pillow on a similar topic. It was all about tips and tricks and how to sort of incorporate this high-low. Designing on a budget and making dollars stretch are important for every project, even the luxury ones. You cannot spend all your money everywhere. You have to pick and choose those moments and where you're going to make it count, right? So I always like to say, number one, scale back and scale up. Bigger impact with fewer pieces. It doesn't need to be a billion, million little tchotchkes. Let's find the moment and let's make it matter. So scale back and scale up. I love high-low mixes. We do this in fashion. I do this as a person when I get dressed. Maybe my handbag is $2,000 and my jewelry is vintage, and maybe I'm pairing it with a pair of $20 jeans and a Gap t-shirt or something. And it just has this cool, effortless luxury look that's layered to it, high-low, right? So I carry that approach into interiors. Think IKEA cabinets with super luxe brass gold hardware, or something like that. Finding a way to take something that's not as fancy or high budget and mixing it with something that is. The other is paint and texture. You can do dramatic things with murals, or maybe stenciling a floor, or finding a unique way to apply paint. So paint and texture can go a long way. And then lastly would be the local makers. I love unique pieces with a story. I've traveled to over 20 countries in my lifetime, and each and every country, I always find something unique. And when you're designing a space, if you can tap into the world, not just, the 5 or 10 vendors you use for your last few projects or the firm likes to go to for whatever reason, think globally and think also locally. You could find so many unique things that tell a story that could really enhance that space.
It's time for the lightning round.
Oh, gosh.
No fear, no fear. Is there a creative project you haven't done that you'd like to take on?
I would love to design a historic train and a historic train station and tie that in with luxury. And, there are others out there that do it already, a luxury train experience. They are not in the US, they are all over Europe primarily. And I would love to bring that here to the States. And even just the whole experience of a train station, not just the train itself, and find a way to do that. I think that for me would be maybe a very interesting dream project. And the fact that it's historic, it has to be historic because then there's just so much history there, and you could really take flight with imagination, tying old with new and having these sort of old world experience meets new world. I mean, I think that would be a dream project.
You worked for the Winds in Vegas.
Yes.
What was that like?
Well, working for Steve Wynn and Roger Thomas, who was his main lead for all of the interiors at Wynn Design and Development, at the time I worked for them was back in 2008, 2009. And that was one of my first gigs in hospitality design. I would say it was a masterclass in detail, scale, ambition. The expectation at Wynn was excellence, always. It shaped me and how I operate to this day. Absolutely. You made a comment when we first started that my team members look like this sort of, I don't know, sort of lineup of something you'd see in a magazine. I felt like Steve Wynn taught that to me in a way. You're telling a story always. We're all storytellers. Every day we wake up, we're telling ourselves a story. We're telling the world a story. Even the way we speak, our eye contact, the way we dress, we're always telling a story. And if you've ever had the opportunity to sit with Steve, I've never met an individual that just captivates you. Steve's voice has this sort of way to mesmerize you and just draw you in. And he took that about himself as a person and everything he's experienced and translated that into hospitality design. I've never experienced any place I've ever worked for, anyone I've ever worked for that's done it remotely close in any way, shape, or form. So he helped teach me how to, execute globally, but think intimately. After I left there, I mean, it probably took years for me to appreciate what that experience taught me. Even to this day, I'm always referring back to it. So I personally believe it really propelled me. I don't know where I'd be right now as a designer had I not had that experience.
During that time, did you have a classic Vegas experience? I won't say crazy Vegas story, but did you have a moment either during the work or just in life that was sort of your Wayne Newton Elvis impersonator moment out there?
Well, I assume this is a question more geared towards personal than maybe professionally. However,
Either or.
I can't really get into the names and details, but here's what I will say. It involved a world famous DJ at the time who is unfortunately no longer with us today, a private VIP booth, maybe a hotel suite, someone else's brief trip to jail, not mine. I stayed in my heels, stayed calm, and left the room, with zero legal issues. And that's
Tonya, what happened? Oh my God. Are you okay?
I'm fine. But the things that you see and do and experience in Vegas in your 20s, and is definitely one for the history books. And that's sort of all I'll say on that.
We're gonna have internet researchers dig into this now and see what happened. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for being a guest on No Show. It's been wonderful.
Thank you for having me for this opportunity. It's been lovely. And I, appreciate moments like this. It doesn't always happen where, people want to know the details and the nit and the grit behind what happens or how you get to where you are in your career. So I appreciate you taking a few moments to ask me these important questions.